Welcome back to another episode of We Shoot Sports, a podcast all about sports photography. Today we speak with Quinn Harris, a wonderful sports photographer based in Chicago, but I'll let him tell you all about that. Full disclosure, this was one of the first episodes that I recorded, and we had some struggles with audio and with the recording, but I've pieced it all back together, and I think we're good to go. Kind of your background, and how you got into it. That was a great story. I'm super bummed.
No, I definitely can walk you through my background, and so again, when I have twin boys that play soccer, I can still remember, when their first soccer game, they were about 4 years old, and the field is full of kids, and the ball rolls, and all the kids just run to the ball as fast as they can. And then they get to the ball and they all just stop. They come to like a complete stop, and they're looking because none of them know what to do with the ball. Now that they're there, they don't know what to do with the ball. But over time, they kept playing, and they went from just kind of this little community league to actually playing on a travel league. And I'm a passionate person, and I still remember saying, I'd never be that father or that parent that's screaming and on. Well, that was me. I was at the games, I just get so into it, and I'm just screaming. And sometimes, showing a side of myself that I wish I wouldn't be showing. But there was one game in particular where the coach asked me to take the camera, and he specifically said, "Go to the other side of the field and take photos." So I knew.
Energy.
I got the innuendo. I knew he was suggesting that, hey, I need to just relax and go and find some other ways to contribute to a game. But needless to say, taking the photos, and afterwards, I'm like, okay, here's your camera. He's like, oh, no. There's a little chip in there. Take the chip. And so I figured out how to get all these photos onto a computer, and I'm looking at them. And again, I did sports in college, and I just remember thinking, like, these don't look anything like the photos that they don't look like the Sports Illustrated stuff. And like, what is this? And what is he doing? Like, where's the ball and where's his face? And so that just that was the start of my quest to to get that image. And so from there, I continued to shoot their games, and some baseball games, some Little League baseball games. But I also decided to enroll into New York Institute of Photography just so I can actually learn the technical components of a camera. That I don't even know what they call it anymore. That triangle, exposure and aperture, and the stuff that we don't,
Triangle.
the stuff we don't even really think about anymore, right? But just to go through and learn that component and composition and what that means, and so I enrolled, and then I decided to started doing high school stuff, and started shooting for Max Prep. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Max Prep or not. I was shooting for Max Prep, and then I decided that, hey, how do I continue to grow and continue to develop and get some opportunities to do some college work and some professional work. And that's when I ran into this door that was just hard to really get through, because every place I went, they said, no, 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 no. So I just couldn't figure out, and it was somewhat of a catch-22, because you couldn't shoot college sports unless you had a portfolio that included college images, but you couldn't get college images unless you had credentials to shoot. So it was like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? But at a certain point, I got this idea. Oh, let me contact my alma mater, right? So I called them up, and they were great. They were great when I was there as a student. They were great when I was there as an athlete, and even during my professional career, they still have been great to me. It's like, oh yeah, So for a couple years, I just drove from Chicago to Ames, Iowa, shooting sports. Shooting
Crazy.
sports.
Yeah,
Just
I mean, your 6 hour drive. I definitely like that's
yeah,
something to
yeah,
include.
yeah.
That's dedication.
Just packed up, and and I would go down there and have butterflies as I'm driving there, and on my way back, I'm upset because I missed this and I missed that, and I wish I would have did this better, and I wish I would have did that better. So I'm going through, two ranges of emotions of going there and coming back. But nonetheless, I do this for a couple years. Um, I didn't mention this the first time around, but I forgot a very significant portion of my growth that I'm actually embarrassed that I didn't mention this the first time, because it was really significant. But there was, as I was as I was developing my portfolio with all the Iowa State stuff, I still couldn't get it into any place. I had to apply for places, and I couldn't get into anything. But then there's a local paper. It's called the Defender. It's a very historical African American news paper here in Chicago. They really were big during the civil rights movements. But they let me go and shoot the Bears. I remember they let me shoot the Bears and they let me shoot the White Sox. And so I had a combination of Bears and White Sox games in my portfolio. And then I got the opportunity to shoot with Icon. Again, I don't know how I didn't mention that, but no, they were very instrumental in giving me that opportunity to live my dream, so to speak.
So when you're going back and forth to Iowa State, right? Iowa State.
Yes.
It's Iowa that does the wave, right?
Yeah, it's Iowa. They all kind of do it. Yeah. But yeah.
I just couldn't remember if it was Iowa State or not. I mean, they both have tremendous wrestling, so
They
that's
do.
what I always hear about them. But
Yeah.
are you shooting for the university at that point? Like, I mean, since they're the ones working with you, are you giving them your images to use, or?
No, they had their own photographers. They had Getty on site and the AP on site. I mean, it's a Big 12 university.
Yeah.
I remember shooting the guy from Oklahoma. His name escapes me now. The quarterback that's now in Cleveland.
Oh, Baker.
Baker. Yeah, I remember shooting Baker. Mate, this just. In fact, we were winning that game up through the fourth quarter. We were up like 20 something points, and somehow he does this miraculous comeback. But no, they have they have just tremendous. So this was just they just allow me to just do it
Which is amazing.
Just for me. Yeah.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
Real quick, I don't know if I asked you this, and you totally don't have to answer this question. What sport did you play?
I was a track and field guy.
That's awesome.
And I also play football. I started off in football and then ultimately was track and field. But I was a 3-time All-American.
Track and field?
Yeah, I was a sprinter.
That's amazing.
A sprinter. Yeah, the 100-meter dash.
That is amazing. Oh, I'm going to go look you up right after this.
No, don't do that. Do not look me up.
So did you know right away, because of your history with athletics and just kind of how you got started with photography, did you know right away, like, I want to shoot sports? Or did you ever, I know you said, and I don't know if we got this or not, but I know you talked a little bit about street photography, but did you pretty much always know it was sports for you?
No, I didn't always know it was sport. In fact, I have lights, and so I did the portrait stuff and I did the street photography stuff. I'm really loving the drones now.
Yeah. Is that what some of the recent stuff you did?
Yeah, the last 3 were all drone shots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got my commercial license with the drones, and but I did macro, and I like to learn, and I feel like there's wisdom in everything, and so there's wisdom in all the different types of photographies. But as I experimented, there were things that I realized I didn't necessarily like to do as much, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the portraits, I felt like I was in people's personal space a little bit more, and so that just didn't gravitate toward me. So then I started off with the 50. And I was like, maybe an 85 is a better lens for that, so I can get back a little further. Yeah. Or maybe a 105 is so I can get back even further. But then I realized, this probably isn't for me. But the sports, I think, is just more of a natural fit for me.
Yeah.
It's more of a natural fit because I understand the sports.
Yeah.
And so it was just more natural. But I did try it, and I still do. I still do other things just because I feel like there's wisdom, in a lot of different.
For growth, for sure. I mean, even with the Photoshop stuff you're doing, so.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so you move forward and you're with Icon at this point, and then
Yep. So I
where
moved
does it go
forward. I'm
from
with
there?
Icon. Yeah. I'm with Icon, and I'm shooting with Icon and developing a portfolio, and just over the years, just had you know sometimes it's just being at the right place at the right time, and knowing what to do when you're in that moment, and just capture some fantastic images and submitted portfolios to Getty and to USA Today and to the AP, and never really got a contract with the AP, but I got a contract with Getty and with USA Today. And in this market, I'm primarily used to just fill in spots. There's a lot of different sports. I also travel to Milwaukee to get the Bucks and the Brewers and the Badgers, and I did the entire Packer season this year as
Oh
well.
wow.
But mostly just to kind of fill in, but taking advantage of every opportunity that I get,
Yeah.
and just trying to make sure that I'm well prepared before I get there, that I'm well prepared. I get there in good time, and I just really focus on doing the best that I can,
Yeah.
and just really trying to maximize those opportunities, and just provided with more opportunities and more opportunities. And so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's kind of where I am now, just freelancing for some of those wire services.
Great. So there was definitely one other question. Well, I don't know if how we got onto this subject, but I loved when you were talking about like some of the things that you learned from your mom.
Oh
Just about like hard work and work
yeah,
ethic and that kind of thing. So I don't know if you remember. I'm so
yeah,
sorry. I apologize.
you know, I can. I'm a mama's boy. I can talk about my mom, just for a long time, because she's a fantastic lady. I mean, she didn't graduate from high school, didn't go to college, but she taught me some lessons that really, obviously are with me today. One of which, as we're talking about freelancers, one of which, she used to always say that it's ironic to her how smart people go to school just to learn how to work for other people. And so she really taught me to learn how to work for myself, and make money for myself and be my own professional. And I take that approach with photography. I treat photography as a business. I try to make money shooting photography. I try to be a professional, with the mindset of um, how can I make money, right?
Yeah.
How can I make money? So she instilled that in me, and I just take that with me every day. And I think it's important. I think it's important for us, for our profession, to have business minded people as well that are trying to develop the market. It helps the market, it grows the market, it helps technology, it grows technology, because when you're doing well financially, when I'm doing well financially, you can go out and get a Canon, I can go out and get a Nikon, like we can go out and we can get drones. But when we're not doing well financially, we can't do those things. When I'm so honed in, so focused on getting those images, that my clients want, you know they get what they want, and
Yeah.
so everything works out, when we operate with a mindset of how can we continue to grow the market, how can we continue to develop it and improve things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's important for, as photographers, I think it's important for us to conduct ourselves as if we're operating a business.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, when we do so, I think it's a win-win, situation whatever contract we're under, as well as ourselves, because as we make money, the the whoever we're in contract with also can make money as well. And also think it helps the craft grow.
Mm-hmm.
It helps, because there's a certain level of competition, a healthy level of competition that comes along with people trying to make a living from it. And overall, I think it just enhances the craft.
Yeah.
So
Um. So how have you seen? So you said you've been doing this kind of for 8 years now. How have you
yeah,
seen once you started with Icon until you moved forward, kind of the industry change in terms of being a sports photographer? I know that you didn't start like you started after digital. Everybody had switched to
Yeah,
digital. It sounds like, but
yeah, yeah. And I've seen. I guess the biggest change I've seen in the time frame has just been with respect to going to market. I think we see just a lot more of photography on social media than before. Just in this time frame. I mean, there's just, and I think that's the direction as well. I mean, just with respect to how consumers and clients how they are getting images now. I just think that's a lot more in terms of social media, and so the crop aspect ratios are changing because the level of, and obviously the technology is changing as well as enhancing with cameras essentially being able to shoot in pitch dark. it's
oh yeah,
it's funny because I I'm in the process of selling one of my all-time favorite lenses, which is the 400.
Speaking of gear, if you've never checked out Lens Rentals, you really should. I've used their products and services multiple times over the years, and I can honestly say that I've never had a bad experience with them. This year, they're doing a Father's Day gift certificate sale, where if you purchase a gift card, you'll receive an additional gift card for yourself with 10% of the value of the card you're buying. So for instance, if you spend $100, you'll get a $10 card for yourself. If there's ever been any gear that you wanted to try out, now is the opportunity. Visit the link in this episode's description and head over to Lens Rentals now.
And I never thought I would part with this lens because it's just such a great lens. But part of the reason that I love it is the reason why I think I no longer need it as much, and that is because of the shooting at night. With the noise levels and with these cameras now, you can get a camera, you can shoot at, you don't have to be wide open at 2.8 and still be able to. So I think that's part of it, is just having technology continue to change and to be better with respect to some of the changes that we're seeing. I think that the number of photographers is diminishing.
Yeah.
I just think the pool of photographers is shrinking a little bit more, and I think that's just due to, we have, the way in which photographers are compensated, right? There was a time where every time everything you shot, you got paid, but now there are organizations that, you get paid based on what you sell as opposed to getting paid up front, right? So that's another component. So I just think kind of all these elements with the technology, with the way that photos are consumed, and some of the business models, I think have been the biggest changes that I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of how do you see it in the future? Like we've talked about a little bit about the past and how it's like evolved. What do you see it moving to from here?
I see more. I do see more video. I see a lot more video, and I see a lot more video in our future. I see, different angles in terms of, drones, being one. The technology is changing still with some of these mirrorless cameras now, as opposed to the DLSR. The business models that reward people with, um, compensation based on what they sell as opposed to upfront. I just see that becoming more prevalent, as well. So I see more changes in that perspective. But I think the biggest change is just, because again, we still have iPhones, right, that take some amazing photos. Actually, as a challenge to myself, one day, I shot an entire basketball game, one of my son's basketball game, with my iPhone, just to see, can I still? Yeah, just took it, and now, no mistake. I mean, there was a drastic difference, but I was still able to do it. But that just goes to show that phone that is capable of doing a lot more, and a lot more is going to continue to happen. So I just see that that's changing things as well. So going forward, I see more reliance on video. I see, the companies with the business model of compensating people based on images. So I see that becoming more prevalent. I think they're growing substantially as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
With your contracts, like, because you said you're a contractor for Getty and USA Today, right?
yeah.
Are you doing any video work for them at all? I want to say there was a
No,
guy here
no, I'm
who
not.
shot for Duke. Yeah, and he wanted to do more video, but it just wasn't there wasn't a need at the time.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not saying more video, or I'm not being asked to do more video. But I think, you know, all the times you get on Instagram now and you see what, it's video.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Definitely.
It's video. It's video. I just see more video. Even some of the photographers that historically had just did stills, I'm seeing now how they're incorporating video.
Yeah.
So I just see that growing.
Oh yeah, I would agree with you for sure on that. I actually was talking to someone on for the podcast the other day. He shoots at Georgia,
Okay.
and he's their sole photographer, and I think they have 4 or 5 video
Yeah.
people. So just to that's like 1 to 5. So
Yeah. Right. Yes.
but
20.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a direction I can see that moving in. Are you what's what equipment are you with, Canon or Nikon or
I'm
Sony, or
I'm Nikon.
are you?
I'm
Have you
Nikon.
tried out any of the mirrorless stuff for Nikon or?
I have. My I have bigger hands. A
Mm-hmm.
little bit probably bigger than the average hand per se.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's just you know, it's not quite there. I also started with Nikon, so I have a little of affinity, towards them, a
Yeah.
little bit of a loyalty towards them. But this new camera that they have out, the D6.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still on the fence with that.
Mm-hmm.
As I compared to what Canon did, is kind of like I was, just wanted to. I was expecting a little bit more from them,
Mm-hmm.
with respect to that launch. But yeah, I'm Nikon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so invested in Nikon at this point. Someone will have to.
That's how I feel about Canon.
Yeah,
There's probably some cameras I'm interested in, but I just to get rid of everything that I have with Canon would just be too much work.
yeah,
Too much work.
yeah. In my more junior years of photography, um, that quest to always get that photo, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that led me to look into a lot of technology that, as I matured, I wouldn't have looked into, right? Because I was always, oh, maybe this will help me get that, or maybe this, and as you get older, you realize that this is always going to prevail, right?
Yeah.
You got to be wise, and you got to be thinking ahead of time, and so, so I'm not as. I mean, technology is our tool. I mean, the camera is our hammer, right? We need it, in order to be able to function in our jobs. But I'm not so hung up on equipment as I used to be when I was probably a little bit more junior in my career.
Mm-hmm.
But now I know if I can prepare a little bit better and be a little bit smarter, that I can probably still get decent images with the decent camera, as opposed to the best of the best of the best.
For sure. That's how I feel as well. How do you, when you're going, I'm trying to decide which sport I would want to ask you about. I guess just kind of in general, not necessarily a particular sport, but like,
Yeah.
how do you approach the process of going through a game day?
Yeah.
In terms of, not just a rival, but maybe your mindset and how you decide what you're going to look for and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. I had a coach tell us once that early was on time and on time was late. Right. And so I approach most things in life with that approach, where I always want to be early. Right. I always want to get there, so that I can take out the stresses of everything else, away. So that's one thing, is always to be early. Another thing, and I'm not sure which one is more important, but I can just kind of talk through all of them. The major thing is just what's going on. What's going on in the world, and what's going on within that game. Because sometimes there are some external factors, some things that are happening outside of the world of sport that ends up in that game. There are some obvious things that we can think about, like, I think back to Colin Kaepernick, with the kneeling that was outside of the sport, but all of a sudden, that was within the sport. It was happening. Yeah, but, so I'm always just trying to understand what's going on in the world. What's going on within that city. What's going on within the team, both teams that are traveling, and during the game, I'm always just trying to figure out what's the story, and who. Sometimes it's what's the story, and sometimes it's who's the story.
Yeah.
I remember a few years ago. Was it a few years or a couple years ago? Aaron Judge's first year. He comes to Chicago and the White Sox, and he's the story, right? Aaron Judge, Aaron Judge, Aaron Judge. From the Yankees, and so sometimes the story is just the who, sometimes just the what. But I think always what's going on in the world, what's going on within the city, what's going on with the teams. What's the story, and making sure I'm there on time.
Yeah. No, that's.
Yeah.
I think I haven't heard anybody say that that's like been their approach yet. Which, I mean, it's like what's the story, but not like just what is going on outside of just the sport. I think it's so easy to get bogged down on the action or whatever's
Yeah,
happening in the game. And
yeah, and I've learned that, when I used to think that probably, my, I think all of us have, we have our own talent, with respect to photography, and we have our own approach. And some people are just really creative, and some people can think outside of the box, and some people are disciplined. They can wait and wait and wait. I used to feel like, my biggest attribute within my own talents was my ability to capture the peak action, right? And just, but at the same time, I know that some of my friends in this, they were making just a tremendous amount of money, but they didn't have the peak action. And I realized over time that, it's not the peak action, that you really need to focus on during the games. It's really being able to humanize some of these athletes, right?
yeah.
To people. I mean, we all like to know that, oh, this person is, they just had a baby, right? They're just like me, right? They went to, and no, so just kind of showing them and an element to just make them seem normal,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I had to include a third, that would kind of be the third, is just looking for opportunities to bring out the human side of these big personalities, right? Just to say, yeah, this is just you know, because again, we think about LeBron, and we think about these amazing dunks, and it's like, oh, I can't really do that. But when people are trying to relate to a LeBron, which on the surface we just can't do, right, because of his talent. But there are some things. He's a father. He's this. He's that. And so when we can really focus on humanizing some of these big personalities, I think it really just helps. And so that would be the kind of the third thing I look to accomplish at a game.
Yeah. That's wow. I want to go back and listen to this podcast
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm like getting some things to think
Well,
about here.
I think the first 15 minutes wasn't recording, so.
I think so. I actually just looked and I got like
Oh,
we got the first like 5 or 6 minutes,
okay,
and then it cut off. So I might have to re-ask you some questions if that's okay.
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, and I want them
No,
so
you know
bad
what?
because
And if we need to redo it, we can.
there you go. There's like technology failing on you. You can't rely on your
Yeah,
cameras, right?
that's right. Yeah. Yes.
Bummer.
So we met here in Chicago at the North Carolina game, right?
Yeah, when I
Yeah.
came up for the
When,
CBS Classic.
when we met in person, I would say.
Yeah. I know. I knew of your work. Before I go back and ask you those few questions, I want to ask you about like some of the creative stuff that you're doing right now, that I've been seeing on Instagram. Just like kind of if that's something that's kind of grown out of the quarantine, or like, is that something you were interested in before, or
Yeah,
it's just amazing stuff.
yeah. So just before the year ended, you
Actually,
know,
do you care if I pop one on the screen?
no, not at all.
Okay, let me see if I can. Is it? I think it's Got Shot by Quinn, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, let me see here if I can pop up one. Anyone that you like love more than?
No, I would just say pick the one that.
Well, you know, I'm gonna pick a Cubs one then.
Okay,
Let me see if
you're a
I
Cubs
can.
fan, huh?
I am. My I have family from Chicago, and so I've been a Cubs, Bulls, Bears for a very long time. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah. That's So there's both of these are actually images of mine.
Mhm.
Actually, I would say all three of these because the stadium behind there as well. But so at the end of the year, I was just thinking at the end of 2019 or towards the end of 2019, I was just reflecting and just thinking where would I like to grow, within the next year. And as you know, like oftentimes we are in these situations where time is time is the most important factor in terms of from camera through the wire, that whole process. And I really wanted to just get better with understanding Photoshop.
Mhm.
I had, I was, I can't even think of it now. It's not Photoshop. It is
Lightroom.
Lightroom. Yes, I had been using Lightroom, and then I decided to switch over to Photoshop because at the time I had just gotten my D5 camera, and there was a glitch with the D5 and Lightroom, and it wasn't, and so I had to switch over, and I didn't know much about Photoshop. And
Mhm.
so Photoshop is an area I wanted to grow in. As a kid, I used to like to draw, and I've always kind of been someone of an artsy. So I was just thinking of some ways to really learn Photoshop, and so I came up with this goal of doing 52 graphic designs
Oh
for
wow.
2020. Right, that's essentially one a week.
Yeah.
And it's like things. I'm cursed with being internally and externally competitive. you know, I,
Right.
I push myself to do crazy things that keep me up like crazy times and doing stupid stuff. But I'm also externally competitive, and so I'm always finding ways to be as good as I see some of the other people are doing. And so I just started and just submerged myself into graphic design as a way to learn photography, and in doing that, definitely trying to get better. Um, no, I'm looking at this one, that you put up here, and I remember going through this, and I also remember reflecting on this one as well, and trying to figure out. And this is where, I was having some troubles just trying to get all the images to blend together,
Yeah.
and that was a concept I learned just by looking at other people's work as well and figuring out how I can continue to grow and to develop. But
Yeah.
yeah, it all started with just a desire to want to learn photography, and well, not photography, Photoshop, but doing it in a way that I found fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just about having fun. Just sit down and read a manual. And that's no bueno, no good, right?
Yeah.
But finding a fun way of learning, I think, is for me works out the best. And designing was one that fit that need.
Yeah. No, these are. I've been loving these. It makes me want to be more creative in this time because I feel like I've been finding creativity through just being home with my daughter. Since I'm
Yeah.
forced to be at home, I'm enjoying this time with her. So I've been taking lots of family photos, which I wouldn't normally do. You get home from a game and you're like, oh, I
Right.
just need a break for a day, or
Right.
whatever it is. So no, when I've seen these, I've thought, oh, these are amazing. And plus, Chicago teams, like I get fired up because those are
Yeah.
my teams. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I don't know what resources you've been checking out, but in my master's program, my photography master's program, one the dean there was her name's Katrine Eisman,
Okay.
and she is known as like the Photoshop diva.
Ah,
Really teaches some great techniques. So if you want to, you should check her out.
I will. I'll definitely check her out.
Yeah,
I would.
she is a Photoshop master. I don't even know how she does half the things
Yeah,
she does in Photoshop. I'm so
yeah,
impressed.
that's amazing. One of the downsides to learning Photoshop and doing graphic design is that I don't know that I'm ever really trust a picture the same way unless I shoot it myself,
Yeah.
because you can do. I don't know, like if you pull up, if you were to go and look at, there was um, an judge. Um,
Is it yours?
yeah, that I did. Yeah, if you
Let me
go here
see.
and you look, yeah,
This
Aaron.
one?
Yes, if you look here, when I was doing this one, be I have a different approach now, but the approach I was doing at this time, I was just going through and finding an image that I like and trying to make a graphic out of it. And now I try to have a purpose before I start a graphic. But as I was doing this graphic, and I'm doing him, and then I started doing some research, and I came across an article that said, "Oh, he switched contracts. He was endorsed by Under Armour,
Mm-hmm.
and he's now endorsed by Adidas."
Oh, wow.
And so when he was in Chicago, he was endorsed by Under Armour. So the cleats that he was wearing were Under Armour cleats.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, well, that's an obvious thing that makes my picture like 3 years old. And so I actually swapped the shoes out.
Oh,
so, and that was just a small change. And some of my other graphics, I've gotten more aggressive with some of the changes that I've made.
yeah.
But for me, one of the downsides is that I realized that you can change an image in so many different ways
Yeah.
and do so many different things that sometimes you don't know if that's the actual picture or not, in terms
Yeah.
of the original image, because they can be manipulated so much. So, but one of the things I enjoy about these graphics is that they're my own images, and so
Yeah.
um, it's just a fun thing for me to take my own images and just try to
Do
do
that.
it.
Yeah, it's amazing. With covering Carolina, there's so many Carolina fans, and I will see sometimes my images just get swiped and put in all kinds of graphics, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh. But it's amazing that they're all yours, and I mean, of course, yeah, just that's amazing. Yeah, I thought about image manipulation a lot with because how fast do people do jersey swaps when someone
Yeah.
changes a team?
Yeah, I did my first jersey swap on here too.
Did you?
Yeah, it was Nick Foles, right? He
I
um
know. Let's
yeah,
see. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
so he Philadelphia and Chicago played in the playoffs a couple years ago, a few years ago. And so this was an image when he was here actually. And so this is
That's
my
great.
first jersey swap.
Look at you with your
Yeah.
Photoshop skills. That's so
Well,
awesome.
it's like anything else, just put in time and hard work and dedication, and you may not be good, but you can always get better, right? That's just kind of how I may not be good in any of this stuff, but I know that if I work at it, I get better. you know, I may never be as good as I want to be or meet other people's standards, but I do know if I work at it, I will improve.
Yeah. No, it's been amazing to see. Here, I'll just scroll through this real
Okay.
quick. Just because, well, and I've been loving these lately too. Oh my goodness. See, I just love Chicago so much. And so,
Yeah, Chicago it's an incredible city. There's just so much here, you
yeah.
know, just so much teams, and I know you do a lot of soccer.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, what's that like for you? Cause you get to shoot a lot of. It looks like anyway that you get to do like women's soccer and women's. Or do you do the WNBA as well?
Yeah, that was a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago has every type of there's even a professional ladies softball team here as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either until a few years ago. I haven't had the opportunity to cover them yet. But I think Chicago has every major team here, every type of professional.
Yeah.
Now, we don't see a lot of tennis.
Yeah.
my daughter plays tennis, and so I'm always looking for ways to find ways to shoot that. We don't see a lot of contact sports. We do get some on occasion, but not a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get it all here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love, I feel like I'm kind of in college mecca right here with Carolina and Duke, and then NC State's not too far either. But I can't
Yeah,
imagine having that many pro sports teams. I
yeah,
mean, Charlotte has the Panthers, and they're getting a soccer team, but just with two
yeah.
professional baseball, I mean, it's incredible.
What was it like covering Zion?
Well, I was pregnant at the time, and nobody knew yet. So occasionally it was terrifying because as he's coming down the court, he's just. There was one time, and this was before we had announced, so nobody knew because it was so early that he was just coming down the court, and he was coming right at me, and he couldn't slow down. And I remember just for some reason, my buddy next to me threw his arms out, but luckily he stopped right before he got to me.
Yeah. Oh wow.
But I mean, he's just a freak athlete, and
Yeah.
um, you can't knock somebody for that
Yeah.
ever. He seems like he
So
works hard. He's a nice kid.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. So are you a Carolina or are you a Duke? Which one you? I know the answer to that. I just want to hear you say it.
yeah. Well, I grew up a Carolina fan. I'm still a Carolina fan, but now that I cover Carolina so much, I feel like my fandom has gone down some.
Yeah.
I think that's funny the way that happens. I can't imagine
Yeah.
that happening with the Cubs, so it's probably a good thing I don't like live in Chicago and cover teams there. But I went to school actually at the University of Utah for
Okay.
undergrad,
Oh wow.
so that kind of took away some of my fandom.
Are you
I
from that area?
I'm not. So I used to dance ballet professionally,
Ah,
and they
wow.
have a very good dance program. So I
Okay.
went out there with the intention of doing dance, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of Duke, so there's a high schooler that I covered here in Chicago for 4 years. I remember as a freshman,
Mm-hmm.
but he's playing at Duke next year.
Oh, is he? Who is it?
DJ Stewart.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He plays for. He actually, when I started covering him, he was a freshman at a Catholic high school,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and then I think when he was a junior, he transferred, came downtown to the city to play for one of the CPS schools. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's a great person. He's just a fantastic kid. But yeah, he'll be at Duke next year. So
Yeah. I don't cover them and NC State as much as Carolina, but
yeah,
I do cover some of their games.
yeah.
I primarily, I mean, I stay so busy with Carolina because I do baseball, basketball, and football, but I also I do a lot of wrestling for UNC.
Ah, okay.
So, which I saw. I couldn't tell if on your website that was a wrestling photo or a gymnastics photo because the singlet kind of looks the same.
Oh yeah, you know what?
But
It was gymnastics.
yeah, but it's a great photo though.
Oh yeah, it was Oklahoma. Yeah,
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 I
it
saw
was
that
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Yeah.
Yeah, they were. I guess they are. Well, maybe they still are, but they used to be. At least when I was covering them, I guess a powerhouse in gymnastics.
Oh, really?
But what I realized with gymnastics is all of them let it go. In the other sports, we don't really see the reaction as much.
Yeah.
But in gymnastics, they do it all day long.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was a pretty common photo to get in gymnastics. Is
Really.
they stick a landing and they just
Yeah.
yeah.
I haven't covered. I've only covered one gymnastics meet.
Okay.
Utah actually has a very good gymnastics program.
Oh, okay.
So it's funny they would pack a gymnastics meet before maybe they packed a basketball game at
Oh
Utah.
wow. Oh wow.
Yeah, it's very interesting dynamic there. Just
Yeah.
how important their
Hmm.
gymnastics team is. All
Right.
right, so let me pop back to these other questions since I'm the worst and I don't know
Okay.
if they were recorded or not. Kind of how you balance between, or not balance. You said
Yeah.
something along the lines of like it's not an
Right.
or,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
and.
Yeah. So yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I don't know how common it is for a freelancer to shoot for multiple companies. So I have the fortune to shoot for Getty and for USA Today. Sometimes it's an or. You either shoot for this one, you either shoot for Getty, you either shoot for USA Today, you either shoot for the AP. But I take an and approach. I shoot for this organization and that organization. I mentioned my background as a CPA, and I was a partner in a firm, but I do remember in finance back in undergraduate, a lot of stuff I have no idea. I know all that stuff goes in and it comes out, but there's a couple things I remember. One of which was never put all your eggs in one basket. So this whole concept of diversifying. Diversifying, and we still hear that term today, when you go on and you want to buy stocks. Oh, don't buy all this, diversify your portfolio. So I take that approach. I don't want to be this or that, because that's not diversifying, but an inclusiveness approach is what works best for me, which is to be diverse.
Mm-hmm. So. And do you still? So are you just full-time, all-the-time photographer, or you still do some CPA work?
I am full-time, all-the-time photographer.
That is amazing. You know, not a lot of people can say that.
Yeah. I can see. I think I need some better light, don't I? Because
it's actually not that bad.
Okay.
It's actually, it's not that bad. I'm technically an introvert, so.
Oh, you are?
So I get a little, I'm like, I get a little nervous. Especially when the computer decides that it's not going to keep recording. So.
Well, I've done the Myers-Briggs test, and I'm like dead smack in the middle.
I should do that and find out where I'm at. Yeah. I just feel like, based off of the things I've heard about introverts, that's my personality, but I could be wrong.
Well, you know what? I learned a lot about that, because I always associated, introvert and extrovert with liking to talk versus not liking to talk.
Yeah.
But that's not what it is at all. It's all about how you re-energize, what's your natural, and a good analogy is, when you work out, if you go for a walk, if you go for a run, do you listen to music or do you not listen to music? Right. And that's kind of an indication of which way you might be. The people that listen to music, they internalize a little bit more. People that don't like music when they run, they get external stimulation a little bit more, but it has nothing to do with talking. It's all about where you get that energy from. Is it more internal or is it more external?
I'm gonna have to do some research on that.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I've always thought about whether you want to be in crowds or not be in crowds. Yeah. Well, and I'm kind of one of those people that doesn't mind being in crowds if it's with people that I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, and I wouldn't read into that too much. Chris Rock, for example, and he tells this story. Chris Rock is one of my favorite comedians, him and Dave Chappelle and some others. But Chris Rock is the extreme introvert. Mm-hmm. Dave Chappelle, extreme introvert. But they're good, obviously, in their craft. And so it's not so much of talking; it's all about where you get that energy from.
Yeah. Have you noticed that play a role in, I guess, like your ability to network or work on, like your ability to advance in photography at all, like you're introvert or you're extrovert, or where you're at with that?
No, in fact, there's, in business, in terms of running and conducting a business, there is sometimes, if you're by yourself, you got to wear two hats. You have to be, the tactician, the person that's actually doing the work, down and doing the work. But then you also have to be, the manager or the non-technician or tactician, right? And so those are two distinct functions where, if you're the one that, that's doing all the shooting, then you don't necessarily have time to strategize and figure out how to do your tax returns or, do your goals and your projections and just some of those, because there's only so many hours in a day, right? Yeah. You kind of can do. So oftentimes there's a little bit of that dynamic. And over time in my non-photography world, I had developed to a role where I wasn't the actual tactician. I was doing some of the other stuff, and that's where I left off. Mm-hmm. I left off. But with photography, I'm, boots on the ground, so to speak, right? I'm actually there, kind of doing it. And so you're not necessarily in a position to do the same type of networking
Mm-hmm.
that you would need to do. You're actually on the ground, you're shooting and not building relationships that are going to get me more. If I'm trying to grow my business, right, then I need to be calling the people at the universities or at the stadiums and saying, hey, do you need someone? You're right. You need to be developing those kind of relationships to
Yeah.
grow, right, as opposed to underground shooting the photography. So from that perspective, no, I don't. I think it was, there wasn't so much of an advantage there
Yeah.
because, right. But with respect to the business side and thinking about incorporating a business and thinking about a business plan and thinking about doing tax returns and having financial and understanding how my business is trending from month to month to year. And another challenge I found with photography is, how do you build that consistency from month to month or from week to week with respect to the financial elements of photography, right?
Yeah.
How can you get to a position where what you're going to make this month, or you can project what you're going to make this month or what you're going to make this year, because you can kind of position it where where your next opportunities are going to come from, and how much you're going to get from those. I know when I started, it was like, what am I going to shoot this weekend? I don't know. Oh, the phone ring, I got a call. But then the next week you didn't know, and then the next week you didn't know. So I've
Yeah.
I've always just continued to try to work at and having what I refer to as a pipeline. Just knowing what's coming next, so I can project and so I think it helps me from that perspective. I
Mm-hmm.
can put on that business hat and just take that approach.
Yeah.
But
So, with you being full time, what have you heard anything about what that looks like when sports are back, or um,
no,
anything?
I network. My personal opinion is that, at least for the next couple years, maybe 3 years, things are going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that translates, financially. I do know that things are going to be different. Number one, obviously, you know, um, even getting back to a place where there's fans,
Yeah.
that's gonna take some time. We have habits that we learn over a period of time, and some people have learned. I don't know about you, but I haven't even turned on a television at all. I have not even
Yeah.
looking at reruns of sports. Right? I don't even.
No.
Right?
I
So
did watch The Last Dance,
yeah,
but
I know that was pretty popular. I didn't even get a chance to see that yet,
mm-hmm.
but I haven't seen anything. And over time, we develop that as a habit. So there's going to be some. My point is that there's going to be some time, even for people, to get back to a situation where they're actually watching sports at their home. Right. So
Yeah.
I just think over the next few years, the market is going to be different. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how it's going to look, what it's going to look like. I don't know if we're going to be more successful or not as successful, but I do think it's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And so just trying to um, just trying to position myself. Just making sure that hey, when I do get that call, like I can give it my all.
Yeah.
I think we're all kind of in the same situation of just not really knowing what it's going to look like. In some cases, I'm hearing that there's only going to fewer photographers are going to be allowed.
Yeah. I
You
saw
know,
that yesterday with it looked like maybe NASCAR
yeah, NASCAR
down
just had Getty.
Getty, and yeah, I think Getty, and I feel like there was one more, but it was
Yeah,
just those two photographers.
yeah. So
Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that transpires. I can see, and this is just speculation. I can see like with where we are, like shooting it somewhere like Carolina or Duke, no fans potentially, or very few fans, and then potentially photographers being moved into the stands. I can see like something like that happening, just
yeah,
from the small things that I've heard. that's all
Yeah,
speculation. So it'll definitely be interesting. I'm ready to get back to it. I miss sports a lot.
yeah, yeah. And and from that might come a new type of technology as well.
Yeah,
There may be a new technology, a new type of camera, a new way of shooting where we can be positioned in the stands and get a shot that's pretty close up because there's a new mechanism to taking photos, right? I mean, there's always something that comes out of these types of situations, new technologies, new opportunities come
hmm
out of it, and just don't know what that's going to look like yet. So
yeah. Wow, that's a really positive outlook. That's great. I feel like most of the photographers that I talk to right now are just super down about this, and it's warranted.
yeah,
That's definitely a positive outlook that I haven't
yeah,
seen.
it is, and I understand, and I get that way sometimes as well. I mean, we're all kind of in the same situation, but there is wisdom in everything, right? There is some wisdom to it, and with challenges comes new opportunities.
Yeah,
And I'm certain that if we were forced to sit in stands and take photos, some smart entrepreneur is going to come up with a camera, that can sit there, right? And we can sit there and we get the same images, right? That's just the way, that's just the way. I mean, as a society, we are just intelligent that way, where we find opportunities. Now, as I'm talking this out, maybe I need to start trying to figure out, hey, how can
yeah. I
but
won't tell anybody your ideas.
yeah, I do think that everything corrects itself, right? And and
Yeah,
and the market forces will take control. We were talking about Canon and Nikon and Sony. You know, they have so much money invested into producing cameras. And so much of their business, relates to people like you and I buying their. Is that Chick-fil-A?
yeah.
Oh,
It
oh,
is.
oh.
I'm on a Coke Zero only. I'm on like my post baby
Yeah,
diet
no,
right
no,
now,
that's
and
great. Yeah,
so on
yeah,
Fridays is my cheat day.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. But no, there's so many other industries that tie into photography.
hmm
There's a lot of pressures to get back to an environment where all of these industries are doing the type of numbers that they used to be doing, right? If you and I aren't shooting, we're not buying cameras. So Nikon and Sony and Canon, their earnings go down, right?
yeah,
And they don't like that. So they got to find ways to, and so the technology,
yeah,
and pressure. So all these, tops that depend on photographers for their business, and not even that, even the paper the paper companies that produces the paper for tops to use, right? To put
yeah,
the pictures on, or the ink companies that produce the ink, right? So
yeah.
there's so many different
It's
industries.
so in depth.
Yeah, there's that we can't just completely cut it all, and because there's all these pressures that are going to try to get it back and get it back and get it back. One of the things I like about shooting baseball is it's just putting sunflower seeds in my mouth and spitting those out, right? But with that said, the company that makes the sunflower seeds, right? They're depending
Yeah,
on people to buy them.
Bubblicious too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah,
so it's so much intertwined
yeah.
that I
You just
think
don't even think about it.
there'd be a lot of forces to try to get it back to a level that makes sense.
Yeah, that's sustainable.
Yeah,
Did you shoot the All Star game when it was in Chicago this year?
I did.
You did.
I
So I was
did.
just thinking about that because last year when it was in Charlotte, I worked for USA Today while I was there, and they had some photographers up high in the stands.
Yeah,
They make that work, You're I don't know how it was in Chicago, but there's
yeah.
some on the floor,
I was,
some in
I
the
was, no, I
stands.
was, I was up in the stands.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean, if need be, I'm sure we'd figure it out in
yeah,
college and other ways. So I mean,
yeah.
football lenses for basketball.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just I just I think if we all can approach it with an open mind, and a willingness to, to look for the wisdom, and the willingness to find ways that continue to make whatever we produce better. I think it'll all work itself out.
Yeah.
There'd be some challenges and some disappointments and some frustrations and all those normal emotions along the way. But I think when it's all said and done, we will be happy with what we produced.
Yeah.
So,
So, real quick pivot here, and then I'll let you go because I've talked your ear off and made you repeat yourself more than once. I'm so sorry. I feel terrible. You're
no,
so well spoken. I just needed to hear it twice for my brain to really comprehend it.
you're being nice.
Um, so, if you were just starting out right now, and I know it sounds like you were already kind of like me. Like I didn't know in undergrad that I wanted to do photography. I went to grad school for photography, which I'm not sure was the right decision, but hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
But I did documentary for a while and then got into sports. So it sounds like you kind of got into sports and photography a little bit later. What would you say to someone who's just starting out right now?
Yeah, I would say I give them the cliche statement, right? Follow your heart.
Yeah.
Follow your passion, and everything else will come. And when you follow your passion, and because there's so many different ways to be distracted. There's so many different doors that are going to open and are going to close. But if you follow your passion, then you take the right, you go in the right direction. Which is I definitely would say just follow your passion and everything else will work its way out. You know,
Oh,
did I lose
did
you
I
there?
lose you for? I think I lost
No,
you for 1 second. That's
it's
okay.
but yeah, but definitely follow your passion. Be a starting point. Again, I think there's wisdom in learning.
Yeah.
From other people and things that my mom used to say that there's nothing new under the sun. As I
Yeah.
got older, I realized that was a biblical scripture from Ecclesiastics. you know, but there's not a lot of new things under the sun, and any type of image that I'm trying to get, someone has already gotten an image before. And so
Yeah.
there isn't anything new. So you can really learn from other photographers, and so just studying images, whether they're current photographers or historic photographers, just studying other people's work and really trying to find ways to learn from the wisdom of others.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. That's great advice. You actually, as cliche as it might be, you're the first person that said that. So,
No way.
yeah, so many people. Which I mean, the other answers I've gotten too have been great.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a great answer. Okay, real quick, where can people find you? Is Instagram the best place? I've had you
Yeah,
scroll. Can you see me
Instagram is
scrolling down here?
yeah, Instagram is the only place where I'm really active is in terms of the Instagram, but also they can go to the Getty website and type my name there, Quinn Harris. You can find me there. You can go on the USA Today as well. Type my name, Quinn Harris. You can find me there. But social media, got shot by Quinn is where I'm most active.
Awesome.
So
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you being here and doing this more than once.
no, thank you, and it's been a pleasure. I'm glad that you asked me to do this. Even just talking through you know experiences, and it just makes me want to grab a camera and run outside and
Yeah, right.
yeah.
I
So
know. Yeah, I'm so excited for it to be back. I'm excited too because even as a fan, like I just love sports.
yeah.
So I was so excited to take our daughter to like her first Cubs game and all of
Oh,
that.
oh
So
yeah.
hopefully someday soon, and
Yeah.
I'll let you know if I'm up there.
Yeah,
It'll be nice
absolutely,
to connect again.
absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of We Shoot Sports, a podcast all about sports photography. So grateful to Quinn for joining me today and for teaching us all. If you have any other photographers that you think that we should check out, that we should interview here on this podcast, feel free to reach out at We Shoot Sports on Instagram. We'll see you guys on the next episode.